Does friendly have a taste? If it does, it's probably like Hello's peppermint-flavored anti-plaque and whitening toothpaste. Brush away plaque, show tartar who's boss, and remove surface stains to naturally whiten. Hello's thoughtful and flavor-forward products make brushing your teeth feel like a confetti-filled bathroom dance party. So say hello to Hello with the always cruelty-free, never tested on animals toothpaste that's made to spread smiles. Visit HelloProducts.com and let Hello add some everyday yay into your life.
There's a time and a place for filet of fish. But breakfast is for sausage biscuits. McDonald's breakfast comes first. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Possibility means you have a chance.
Passion opens the door to all possibilities.
When I feel like anything's possible, I feel kind of giddy.
I want to be an astronaut, an artist, an actress.
To visit another country.
All I need is a backpack and a pair of shoes, and I'll find a way.
That I'm able to do anything I set my mind to.
I've never felt like more things are possible than right now.
In the right shoes, anything's possible.
DSW, countless shoes at brag-worthy prices. Imagine the possibilities.
AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today. golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio.
Let's ride!
Hour 3, off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us, AFR, presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. I'm Matt.
You're a loser, man!
Hey, shut up, kid. Paul O'Neill.
They're chanting Paul O'Neill's name.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Toby Tom Plate. All right, we're here. Glad you are as well. 5 o'clock quitting time. Glad you are driving home with us. Saints are back on the practice field today. LSU opened up fall camp. If you missed, we opened the show today with full comprehensive camp day one practice report. It's on demand if you want to check it, podcast or YouTube. Just search AFR LSU. That's AFR LSU, podcast or YouTube. Just search AFR LSU. You'll see it right there. Went deep into all my observations. One of the most obvious things that anybody, like if you're an alien, you live on Mars, you get in your flying saucer, you drop down into Baton Rouge today, you come down your little step ladder, you're at LSU, you go to the indoor, you watch practice. It looks weird because you got a bunch of big humans crashing into each other wearing silly get-ups. There's one thing that would be very obvious to you, even an extraterrestrial being. The fast guys that line up far away from the ball and run downfield are really good. They got a lot of them. Lots of them. My goodness, the LSU wide receiver group today showed out. And one of my big questions coming into fall camp, remember, so there are 4 things primarily that I was looking for. Offensive line, safety, the health of guys like Harold Perkins, Jacobian Guillory, Jordan Gilbert, those coming off of injuries. But another component that I'm looking for is how Joe Sloan utilizes all this talent. And I hesitate to use the word problem because it's not really a problem, but you have really good players that are not going to play. Like really dynamic players that aren't going to see the field. The play of the day, Wednesday. The play of the day from day one. The play of the day from day one was true freshman Teron Francis in an 11-on-11 lined up against 5-star DJ Pickett, and he makes a reception down the left sideline, Pickett draped all over him. Van Buren put it up, said, go make a play, and my goodness, did Teron Francis make a play. Y'all, Teron Francis ain't playing this year. He's got Aaron Anderson and Chris Hilton and Xavier Thomas and Barrion Brown and Nick Anderson and Bauer Sharp and Trades Green and the young veterans that are ahead of him like Kyle Parker. He's got all these dudes ahead of him. Jelani Watkins. Look at all the receivers they got. He ain't getting Kylan Billiot. He ain't getting on the field. There's so many of them. So you have really good players that aren't going to play, and it continues to bear itself out. Athlon had a list of the top 25 receiving corps in the country. Ohio State was one. Clemson, Bama, Auburn, then LSU was 5. I mean, I look at that and I kind of understand why LSU is where they are because like Ohio State is going to get so much notoriety because of Jeremiah Smith. I mean, Smith last year as a freshman caught 76 balls for 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns. Like, for context, Aaron Anderson led LSU with 61 catches and 884 yards and 5 scores. Smith had 76 for 1,315 tuds. Like, you have that guy, it's going to catapult you up in these lists. Ryan Williams from Alabama is another one of those types of guys. Interestingly enough, like, do you realize for all the hype around Ryan Williams, it's justified. He's a magnificent player. He had 48 catches last year. He had 48. Aaron Anderson had 61. Williams had 865 yards. Anderson had 884. Aaron Anderson had a better year last year than Ryan, statistically, a better year than Ryan Williams did. Now, Aaron Anderson is a former 5-star, and Williams is a freshman. And by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but Williams was 17 years old last year as a freshman. I'm not sure if you heard. I think, well, we have to fact check that. I think I read that on Twitter. Maybe Joe Tessitore mentioned that 1,000 times. But it is interesting, too, because on that list, LSU plays with Clemson and Bama. So for that LSU secondary, it's going to be a real challenge immediately, just from jump with Clemson and those wide receivers. But yeah, I was looking, and by the way, it's not just like that Athlon thing is an arbitrary list. It bears out, too, the Biletnikoff odds came out today. Not the watch list, like the odds to win the award. And Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State was 1 at 3-1. No surprise there. Ryan Williams was 2 at 9-2. Again, no surprise those two are at the top of the list. They had magnificent freshman seasons. They have the stats, the name recognition, all good teams with good offenses, all that sort of stuff. Jordan Tyson from Arizona State was 3. Antonio Williams from Clemson, again, a guy LSU's going to play in the opener, was 4. Jacoby Lane from USC, 5. Cam Coleman from Auburn, 6. Carnell Tate at Ohio State, 7. Malachi Fields from Notre Dame, 8. Ryan Wingo from Texas, 9. Zachariah Branch, who's now at Georgia, by the way, is at 10. And then Aaron Anderson, 11 on that list. The only other LSU Tiger on the list with odds is Barrion Brown at 66-1. And Barrion Brown made his presence known immediately with a 40-yard touchdown grab on the opening possession of the hurry-up, no-huddle sort of 2-minute offense where Nuss dropped, free play, quick count, free play. Nuss dropped one in the bucket. Brown just dusted Ashton Stamps down the right sideline, and I just couldn't help but think, my goodness, what was Mark Stoops doing? Like, how did you not know how to use this guy? Like, how was Kentucky's offense so impotent a year ago when you had this guy? But that's going to be the challenge, is how to get him involved. And Brian Kelly acknowledged, like, this, like, the numbers in this receiving core is, it's just different than anything he's had before.
We have 8 SEC high-caliber receivers. These guys are really good football players. And so it's incumbent upon us to put them in a position to succeed for themselves and for our team. I think that's the biggest management right now, is doing that. And then being smart, right? When you have that kind of depth, you can lessen the player load for these guys across the board and keep them fresh. And so what we've told them is it's 1A, 1B, and we're going to be rolling guys in and out. But I would be less than honest if I didn't say it's as deep as I've ever had.
I want to give you some context to illustrate why that's not hyperbole, that's not an exaggeration. If I asked you the best offenses LSU ever had, everyone would start with 2019. Naturally, it's the best offense in the history of college football. That year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 receivers caught a pass. I'm not talking about pass catchers, not tight ends, running backs, wide receivers. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Terrace Marshall, Racey McMath, Derek Dillon, Jontre Kirkland, Jeray Jenkins, Devontae Lee, Trey Palmer. Now, Devontae Lee ended up playing safety later on. But anyway, you had 9. Jontre Kirkland ended up playing quarterback. You had 9 guys who were wide receivers that caught a pass. For context, 2023 led the country in total, first in offense, total offense in scoring. You had 5. Neighbors, Thomas, Kyron Lacey, Chris Hilton, Aaron Henderson. Those are the only 5 receivers in 2023 that caught a pass. 2011, great offense in 2011. Reuben Randall, Odell, Shepard, Kadron Boone, Jarvis Landry, James Wright. It's 6 wide receivers that caught a pass in 2011. Go back to 06. Remember, 06 was the team that had 2 wide receivers taken in the first round, Dwayne Bowe and Buster Davis. I mean, Jamarcus was the quarterback, went number 1 overall. Bowe, Davis, Early Doucette, Brandon LaFell, Jared Mitchell, Chris Mitchell. 6 receivers that caught a pass. So again, the standard is 2019, which had 9 receivers that caught a pass. Now, a lot of that was you're beating the hell out of everybody, and so you had guys who got reps later in games. You heard Brian Kelly say they got 8 SEC guys. He's not wrong. Aaron Anderson, Xavier Thomas, Chris Hilton, that's already established, those 3. Nick Anderson is coming in from Oklahoma. Barian Brown is coming in from Kentucky. Destin Hill, who's coming in from Florida State, who was awesome today. That's 6. That's 6. And then you've got Kyle Parker, who was playing in the opener last year against USC after Chris Hilton got injured. That's 7. And then you've got Kylan Billiot, Jelani Watkins, Teron Francis, Phillip Wright, all young guys. But if you want to throw an asterisk around someone like Trey'Dez Green, who is a tight end but is a receiver, it's a pass-catching tight end, but specifically receivers, I don't know who the 8th is that BK's talking about, but there's 7 right there that are already proven they can play on Saturdays at this level. And that's more than 2023, 2011, 2006, and starts to rival 2019. I'm not sitting there saying this offense is going to be 2019. What I'm telling you is you got a 5th-year senior quarterback and an absolute buttload, technical term, buttload of receiving talent. The other thing, too, Brian Kelly was asked about the ability to stretch the field because we saw it with that play with Barian Brown. First offensive series of 11 on 11, and Nuss hits Brown on a 40-yard touchdown where he beats Ashton Stamps. They go outside. Chris Hilton catches about a 25, 30-yard pass downfield where I didn't chart who the defensive back was, my apologies, but Hilton had him beat. Nuss slightly underthrew it. Again, you'd rather him underthrow it than overthrow it. So Hilton had to slow up, catch it, so he wasn't able to catch and run, but he caught the ball. I mentioned the play that Van Buren made down the field, throwing the ball to Teron Francis. Like, we didn't even get to see Nick Anderson, who averaged 21 yards a reception 2 years ago when he was healthy. So, yeah, they got deep threats in this offense as well.
We've got guys that can run. Chris Hilton is healthy. He's had a great offseason. He's much more assertive as a player as well. And then Barian Brown. You've got 2 guys that can play that X position that can run past anybody, whether it's a go, a post, a dig. And that is an incredible weapon. And it allows us, as I said earlier, is to lower their player load. They're A and B, right? They're going to get a lot of touches and a lot of snaps. And then you add Aaron Anderson, who's the ultimate playmaker. We have to be careful with all of our players, but, we want to keep Aaron ready for Saturdays, too. And so you got Kyle Parker, who I am really high on. I think he's going to have an incredible year. But now you can add Kyle Parker to the slot. And then into the boundary, you got Xavier, you've got Nick Anderson. You've got some depth there.
Oh, did we mention Jelani Watkins? Like, literally the fastest guy in college football? Like, Barian Brown was the fastest player. Like, they have the thing where they can clock your top-end speed. Well, Barian Brown was that last year in college football. Jelani Watkins might literally be the fastest. I mean, from the track onto the field. Like, he's Trendon Holiday. Track fast, coming to play receiver. Hey, just go. We're going to throw it to you. Outrun the guy. catch on a jet sweep and just outrun everybody to the corner. I mean, Jelani Watkins may have 10 touches on the season this year, but he may score 4 touchdowns. Like, he may account for, 100 yards on 10 touches, 200 yards. He's got that ability. So, no lack of options. And Brian Kelly said it's the deepest receiving core he's ever had, and he's not wrong. And this one could. We'll come back at the end of the year and see, but this one could rival 2019 depth. I'm not saying one of these guys is going to break Jamar Chase's record, your single season receiving record. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that someone's going to win the Biletnikoff. What I'm saying is the depth of guys that you're rotating in and getting them targets and touches, like it's going to, I think it only rivals 2019 when we come back at the end of the season and see it, because I don't know how there's a world where Anderson, Thomas, Hilton, Nick Anderson, Barry Brown, Destin Hill, Kyle Parker, I don't know that there's a world where all of those guys aren't involved in some way. They have to be. Like, if you're not getting Barry and Brown involved, that's malpractice. Destin Hill has shown you he's going to block and be physical. Like, Chris Hilton can blow the top off a defense. Xavier Thomas is so experienced. By the way, they gave a handoff today to Xavier Thomas out of the backfield. Like, all these guys are going to be involved, and that's going to be the fun thing to watch, how Joe Sloan manages to get all of these guys involved and get all of these guys touches. All right, it's after further review. We're brought to you by Parrish Construction and Roofing. By the way, I was in a break. I was looking at this. Had an awful hailstorm in Baton Rouge. Actually, hail on Bluebonnet in Baton Rouge today. It was right around 4 o'clock, maybe in the 3 o'clock hour Central Time. If you're in that area that had hail today, parrishbuilt.com, parrishbuilt.com. I tell you every day, do business with someone you know, Parrish Construction and Roofing. Go to parrishbuilt.com, parrishbuilt.com. But we had this hailstorm, and we'll always offer a free, no-obligation roofing inspection. And the thing that I would encourage you, a lot of times people say when there's hail, oh, well, I'll just wait for a storm, like a hurricane or something. Highly, 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 highly always recommend check your insurance policy. Check your homeowner's policy, because you'll have different criteria for roof. There's like a named storm deductible, so like for a hurricane, and then you will also have many times a wind hail deductible. So if you had hail damage, like you will have a different deductible for wind hail as opposed to a named storm. And sometimes your wind hail deductible will be lower. Listen, all this to say, like, don't let a storm like this pass and just assume everything is okay. Hail strikes can cause damage you don't see. Let us come inspect it, because the worst thing that can happen, I tell you it all the time, the worst thing that can happen is you wait till you get water in your house and then you get the roof inspected, because by then you got a big problem, because you've had a slow leak that you start to see a water spot on your ceiling, because that water spot didn't start today. It's been dripping. So now is the wood rotten? Is the insulation wet? You have a much bigger issue. That's why it's so important to get that roof inspection. It's a free, no-obligation roofing inspection. Let us help you out at Parrish Construction and Roofing. Go to parrishbuilt.com, parrishbuilt.com. Do business with someone you know, Parrish Construction and Roofing. Go to parrishbuilt.com. All right, y'all, it's after further review. If you want to, you can always email us, tweet us, or text us in the 225-396-4400, 396-4400, 396-4400. Lots of ways that you can get involved in the show. If you got a question or something, or a player you're interested about from LSU fall camp today, fire away. There's a couple of other things Brian Kelly talked about that I want to get to when we come back. I told you we're like all football today. And I do want to take a little bit deeper look at the Saints roster as well, as they've crossed the 1 week mark in training camp so far. So still a lot to do, and I'll gladly get your feedback in. So email me, tweet me, text me if there's a player or something specific you'd like us to address. If I don't have it today, we'll certainly look at it when we're out at practice tomorrow. Stick around. It's AFR.
AFR.
If you're thinking about selling your home, why would you call anyone other than the realtor that literally sells more homes than anyone? It's Darren James. Darren's going to sell your home guaranteed. I love telling you about the guaranteed sale program. It works like this, and I've been able to tell you about this since 2011. Darren will sit down with you. You'll do a full market analysis, and you'll agree to a price and a deadline. based on all the comps and everything in the market, and Darren will lay it all out for you. You'll agree to a price and a deadline. If Darren doesn't sell your home at that price by that deadline, he'll have your home bought with cash or he'll sell it for free. What do you have to lose? Call Darren James, 335-7666, 335-7666, 335-7666, or agent225.com. That's agent225.com. If you need to sell your home, you need Darren James.
Think real estate, think Darren James.
I'm Rodney Williams. And I'm Travis Holloway. Welcome to the Wealth Break Podcast, a real conversation about finance. Let's be honest, building wealth doesn't look the same for everyone.
I feel like sometimes being broke is a cycle and that we might have to revisit that.
And we're not stopping at success stories.
What happens when it doesn't go right? How do you cope with it?
Because wealth isn't just about money. It's about creating a life where you thrive and help others do the same. Listen to the Wealth Break Podcast on the iHeartRadio app.
You're great at protecting your own personal information. You probably even use things like two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN. But as much as you try to be in control of how your information is protected, there are lots of places that also have it, and they might not be as careful as you are. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second for identity threats. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock US-based restoration specialist will help solve identity theft issues on your behalf, guaranteed or your money back. Plus, all LifeLock plans are backed by the $1 Million Protection Package, meaning LifeLock will reimburse you up to the limits of your plan if you lose money due to identity theft. You might not be able to control how others handle your personal information, but you can help protect it with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Call 1-800-LifeLock and use promo code iHeart or go to lifelock.com/iHeart for 40% off. Terms apply.
Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. Consult a doctor prior to use.
You look great. What have you been doing?
I found Zelthy. If you qualify, their providers can prescribe the same active ingredients in Ozempic and other expensive GLP-1s for 80 to 90% less without insurance. All of mine shipped right to your door.
Get started with Zelthy today for just $39. Call pound 250 and say keyword CARE. That's CARE to pound 250.
After further review, presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. Visit yourgoodwood.com.
There's always value. Multiple tight end, formations are really challenging for defense. They can be put in conflict, especially when you have a guy like Juwan who can play a number of different positions with his background as a receiver. And so, Jack and a number of these guys are doing a nice job. We're going to need a couple of these guys to come up and step up during the season.
Jack being Jack Stoll, the tight end. That's Kellen Moore talking about Juwan Johnson. And unfortunately, Juwan Johnson is one of the guys who got nicked at practice today. Jordan Schultz was the first to report it. Tight end Juwan Johnson left practice with a groin injury. He notes, quote, "My understanding is it's not considered serious. He's expected to miss a few days at most." Also noting Johnson signed a 3-year, $30.75 million deal this offseason, poised to be a big part of Kellen Moore's offense. The Juwan Johnson component of this offense is interesting. First of all, about the groin injury. You always get nervous when you hear groin, you hear soft tissue. Remember, the groin injury is what kept Eric McCoy out for the bulk of last season. He came back just before the bye and then re-injured it, unfortunately. You can't help but think, like, what if he had just sat it out through the bye, the extra 2 weeks? Maybe you have him for the remainder of the season. But anyway, you always get a little leery when you hear soft tissue, things like groin, just because of the ability to heal. Maybe more serious with big guys that weight bear a lot, especially in the interior of the line of scrimmage where you have other 300-pounders leaning on you. Maybe not as serious for a guy like Juwan Johnson. But the good news is you have a veteran. I love the line that Mike Detillier used here forever. Practice is for the unskilled. Juwan Johnson is a skilled player. You got a $30 million investment into him over 3 years. You know what type of player he is when he's on the field. The more interesting part of Juwan is, like, we knew what Sean Payton wanted to do with Juwan Johnson, and therefore what Pete Carmichael wanted to do with Juwan Johnson. Is different a year ago when you had a new offensive coordinator in Clint Kubiak, because we could look at the tight ends he had in some of his previous offenses, But Juwan Johnson's an outlier, right? I mean, you have your prototypical blocking tight ends. You've got your receivers like Juwan Johnson. Then you got your hybrids, the guys that are physical players but are really good pass catchers, like Brock Bowers. Really the evolution that came into the league with Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, which Brock Bowers now is like the prototype. But Juwan Johnson's a guy was a receiver who they converted to tight end. And we've seen what he can do as a mismatch. The guy was 6'5", but does Kellen Moore have a role for that in his offense? That's going to be fascinating to watch, because like we know Kellen Moore utilizes the tight end, but it's just very different than what we saw him have in Dallas, LA, and Philly. He just didn't have a guy like this that was just basically a receiver playing tight end. So that's why in that soundbite you heard Kellen Moore talking about the benefit of having the blocking tight end. You kind of it's a prerequisite. Like you have to have that prototype mold, which of course is what Foster Moreau is supposed to be in this offense, but he's coming off the severe knee injury, and we don't know when or if Foster is going to be available this season. Remember, Foster Moreau suffered that injury on the week 18, the final playing date, week 18, and it was January the 4th. So you're talking about, it's been 7 months since that injury. So at what point might Foster be available? We don't know, which is why you need some of these other guys that could be available at tight end, which is why the Saints have 9 of them on the roster trying to find, when you include Foster and Taysom, by the way. So aside from those two, 7 more, including, you drafted Moliki Matavao out of UCLA, but you got to find some stability at that position to complement Juwan Johnson, because you need the blocking tight end in your offense. And Jack Stoll is one of those guys who could be it. And Kellen Moore talked about Jack Stoll on Wednesday.
Jack's done a nice job. Jack's hopped in here. He's played this role of kind of this blocking tight end for a few years when I was up in Philly, and he did a phenomenal job there. And certainly he's got more pass game availability, and so he's been able to show some of that through this training camp, and he's done a nice job.
I mean, you would ideally love to have Dallas Goedert, the tight end that could do both. And maybe those are becoming a little more in vogue. I think Mason Taylor is going to be that for the Jets. Absolutely.
Mason Taylor!
In his career. Mason came to LSU as a guy weighing about 225. He left as a guy weighing 255 and looks the part, right? We know the pass catching ability is undeniable, but what developed at LSU was the other part of it. And I think you're seeing more guys like that as there is more of a focus on that hybrid in the modern game of football. As you continue to see value in those roles. But Saints don't have one of those. At least not that we know of yet. So that dual role is going to be interesting. So we'll watch Juwan Johnson's health. Again, I don't need to see Juwan Johnson in preseason games. I just need Juwan Johnson there in September when the Saints are getting ready to play week 1. Like that's what I'm interested in. I'm not so much interested at all in what they're going to do against the Chargers in the first preseason game. I don't need to see Juwan Johnson out there. I want to see the other tight ends who are vying to earn a roster spot. But on September the 7th, when the Saints play the Cardinals in the Dome, I just need Juwan Johnson there and healthy. What I'm more interested in against the Chargers is the other tight ends that are vying for a roster spot, because maybe it's Jack Stoll, but somebody else, because Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau are not going to be there September the 7th against Arizona. Who will be? That's the big question that we'd love to have an answer to, and we'll start to find out here over the next month. All right, we're brought to you by Parish Restoration. Kill mold, remove odor. You got water intrusion in your house, chances are you got mold. I mean, we live in the mold capital of the world. It's wet and it's humid. It's a breeding ground for mold. So if you have mold or think you might, you want Parish Restoration. The Parish Restoration vans, I see them at the Parish office all the time. They got all the hose wound up through the Sprinter vans, so that they'll pull up to your home, to your office, the church, the building, the workout facility, whatever it is, your vehicle, and they'll run the hose into the building. They'll get in there, they'll spray, they'll close up the doors and the windows, they'll let that fog, that dry fog, settle, and it'll kill everything down to the spores. It's more effective. It's more cost effective as well. It's more efficient. It's Parish Restoration. Learn more. ParishRestoration.com. ParishRestoration.com. It's After Further Review. We're glad you're hanging out with us here. I did want to jump back. One more thing that Brian Kelly talked about that caught a lot of attention was about a former 5-star defensive tackle and what he did today. We'll jump into that as we continue and get to some of your calls, texts, emails, tweets if you want to jump aboard. Remember, you can text us in the 225-396-4400, 396-4400, 396-4400. You can always comment in the Bayou Ford YouTube chat on the Watch 104.5 ESPN YouTube channel. Thanks for being here. Stick around. It's AFR.
AFR.
And we are presented each and every Wednesday by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. You know, yes, they do ED treatments. If you have ED, you know you have ED, Goodwood can help. It's not just a little blue pill. They have many different types of ED treatment. You can look them up. But hormone replacement therapy is the thing that might change your life. Hormone replacement therapy is safe, it's affordable, and for every single human, as we age, our body produces less of the hormones that contribute to how we feel. I've told you the story for years. I was a guy in my mid-30s. My testosterone levels were in the 200s. I went through an insane life event where we lived in a hospital for 9 months, and it just aged me biologically. Hormone replacement therapy has been a life changer. You want feet hit the ground in the morning, you got energy, you sleep better at night, you build muscle, you burn fat, mental clarity, heart health, prostate health. It's all tied in. Learn more at yourgoodwood.com.
I'm Rodney Williams.
And I'm Travis Holloway. Welcome to the Wealth Break.
Let's be honest, building wealth doesn't look the same for everyone. It's not just about saving, it's about investing. It's about navigating systems that weren't built for you, embracing your hustle, and relying on your community to create something bigger.
And that's exactly why we created the Wealth Break. We made something different, something more human. It's not just another financial podcast. It's a conversation about real life, real struggles, and real wins.
We're here to talk about the journey. You'll hear from people who've broken barriers, found creative ways to succeed, and learned to build wealth on their terms. Whether it's the first-time homeowner, a gig worker, or someone turning a side hustle into a 6-figure business, we're bringing you their stories.
And we're not stopping at success stories. We're breaking down the realities, like what it means to take risk, how to navigate failure, and why resilience matters. Because wealth isn't about money. It's about creating a life where you can thrive and help others to do the same.
So if you're ready for a podcast as much as about people as it is about money, you're in the right place.
Listen to the Wealth Break podcast on the iHeartRadio app.
You're great at protecting your own personal information. You probably even use things like two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN. But as much as you try to be in control of how your information is protected, there are lots of places that also have it, and they might not be as careful as you are. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second for identity threats. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock US-based restoration specialist will help solve identity theft issues on your behalf, guaranteed or your money back. Plus, all LifeLock plans are backed by the $1 Million Protection Package, meaning LifeLock will reimburse you up to the limits of your plan if you lose money due to identity theft. You might not be able to control how others handle your personal information, but you can help protect it with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Call 1-800-LifeLock and use promo code iHeart or go to lifelock.com/iHeart for 40% off. Terms apply.
Message and data rates may apply or consult a doctor prior to use.
Wow, you look amazing. What have you been doing?
I'm sure you've heard of Ozempic, Wegovy, and the other GLP-1 medications, right? Well, I found this great company called Zelfie. If you qualify, their providers can prescribe medications like Ozempic and Wegovy and other GLP-1 medications that are 80 to 90% less expensive, all 100% online.
I can get GLP-1 medications for 80 to 90% less and do it all online? No doctor's office or pharmacy?
Yes, Zelfie can provide semaglutide or tirzepatide, the active ingredients in Ozempic and other expensive GLP-1s, but for 80 to 90% less and shipped directly to your door.
How do I get started with Zelfie?
Call pound 250 with the word CARE to get started today with Zelfie. Get the same active ingredients in Wegovy or Ozempic, but for 80 to 90% less and 100% online. Don't wait. Call pound 250 with the word CARE right now for a link to your exclusive offer. Call pound 250 with the word CARE. That's pound 250 with the word CARE. Pound 250 and CARE.
After Further Review, presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. Visit yourgoodwood.com.
He's forced our athletic development staff, our training staff, athletic training and weight training. We ran out of weights for him to max squat. He was 650 pounds max squat. And so I just throw that out to you as how powerful he is. And he's such a great kid. He's so grounded. He wants to get better every single day. And he has elite strength and numbers from that perspective. So, yeah, he's going to play a major role in what we do. He's still learning. Coach Williams has got him with him right on his hip every day, but he's enjoyable to coach.
This is Brian Kelly talking about Don McKinley. So whenever a former 5-star defensive tackle out of Acadiana, of course, it was slowed for about the first half of last year with that toe injury, and then, man, did he come on late. But it was interesting. So I tweeted out that quote about they ran out of weights. Jeff Schwartz, of course, former NFL offensive lineman, I guess he saw my tweet, and he quote tweeted it. He doesn't follow me. Just, I guess, saw the tweet. He said, LSU doesn't have 100-pound plates. Yeah, I didn't know 100-pound plates were a thing. I mean, I've worked out my whole life. I've been in gyms my whole life. I've just always seen 45s. You got the 45-pound Olympic bar, and then you got 45-pound weights. And so my guess is what Brian Kelly meant. Not that they didn't have enough weight. My guess is like they ran out of room on the bar. Because if you're doing 650, you'd have like 14 plates. It'd be like 7 on each side. Eventually, if you're going to have the ring clip at the end to keep the weights on there, you're going to run out of space, which is probably what happened here. But yes, maybe that's what he's alluding to, is they've maybe had to go buy 100-pound plates for instances like this in the future, which is a wild thing to think. But it does speak to the size, the power of Don McKinley, and the increased expectation. One thing that I didn't mention earlier in the practice report that I should mention now, when they were earlier today working out in individual drills, there was a point where Kyle Williams was with 4 of the defensive tackles, and I don't know who the defensive tackle GA or assistant or analyst was with the rest of the guys, the younger guys, and the 4 were it was Ahmad Bro, Don McKinley, Jacobian Guillory, and Bernard Gooden were those 4, and then everybody else were with the other defensive line coach. Forgive me, I'm just not sure who the analyst or the GA is that was working, which is very common, by the way. Like, a lot of the position coaches have GAs that work with their position group. So that's not in any way uncommon to have GAs or other people helping with the position group or analysts. But it does kind of give you a little bit of an insight into who the guys that they're counting on immediately are at that position. And when they ran with the ones initially, it was the 2 incumbents. It was Don McKinley and Ahmad Bro who were running with the ones initially. And then you rotated behind them, and we saw Bernard Gooden, and we saw Jacobian Guillory and Sadir Mitchell after that. And then you got the younger guys, the freshmen who are here. This deep and talented freshman class at defensive tackle, but they're going to have to wait their turn because LSU invested at every level of the defense to get better. And one of my sort of suspicions, and when we did yesterday, when we did our the 4 camp storylines that I was watching, I mentioned offensive line, which is the obvious one, safety, which was such a liability a year ago, and they've added guys there, and Jordan Gilbert's healthy and all that. One of the things that I mentioned was Kyle Williams, because last year Bo Davis did really a magnificent job with that defensive line, especially given the lack of ingredients to get the productivity that they did out of the guys they had. It showed tremendous buy-in and effort and technique. You didn't have All-Americans. You didn't have anybody get drafted. I mean, Gio Paez and Paris Shand and freshmen and Ahmad Bro. Some guys playing out of position. They did a really solid job considering. And Bo Davis was recruiting a certain type of player. Like the 2 transfers, Sadir Mitchell and Bernard Gooden, are the best example I can give you of this change. Sadir Mitchell is 360 pounds. Bo Davis recruited him to Texas, and then when Bo Davis came to Baton Rouge, he recruited Sadir Mitchell out of the transfer portal to LSU. Kyle Williams comes in and he recruits Bernard Gooden out of the transfer portal, who's 6'1", 280. And today, Bernard Gooden had 2 sacks and a TFL in the team period going against Josh Thompson, the transfer from Northwestern. I mean, it was like a turnstile there when they went outdoors. It just goes to show you stylistically the difference between what Bo Davis wanted and what Kyle Williams wants and covets in a defensive lineman. So how that works. Remember, Ahmad Bro's another one who's going to be a smaller defensive tackle, converted from, he's the guy who last year told the story about his Whataburger order. He ate like the 16 large fries or whatever it was. And the jalapeno, bacon, cheddar cheese, whatever it was. Like, it was gaining weight to play tackle, but he's still ain't Don McKinley. I mean, he's not a 330-pound dude. He's a dude that's going to be in that 280, 290 range. So how does Kyle Williams blend mesh that? The ingredients he has, which don't really meet what he wants to do, but it's what he's got. He's got to maximize it. So we've got a little bit of both. It'll be interesting to see. But we're excited to look at Don McKinley in his sophomore year, the former 5-star who it took him a little while to get healthy last year, but when he did, man, boom, he was explosive and could very well have a dominant season this year. All right, it's after further review. Man, I was having a chat earlier today with Chef Layton over at Supper Club, and we were talking whiskey, and you all know that I'm a whiskey nerd. If you love whiskey, I would put Supper Club's whiskey selection up there with anybody else in town. And the prices for a pour are reasonable relative to what you'd normally pay for some of these things. I was talking to Chef Layton today. He was running through the inventory. I mean, they got Van Winkle. I mean, they got Pappy 15, Pappy 20. They got the full Weller vertical. They've got all of the E.H. Taylors. They've got Blanton's. Blanton's straight from the barrel. Blanton's Gold. Hundreds. I mean, the selection is quite incredible. A lot of the mash bill 2's there if you want to try the Rock Hill Farms or Elmer T. Lee. I'm speaking Greek to some of you, but just understand, for those who know whiskey and you're looking for great whiskeys and you love to go have a great pour, that you may never find the bottle on a shelf or never win it a raffle, but you want to sample these great whiskeys, you can do it at Supper Club. And remember, you don't need a reservation to go sit at the bar. It's one of the things that I try to stress enough, but still it's a barrier for a lot of people. It's open seating at the bar. You can always walk into Supper Club and have a great bar experience. Look, you want to sit at the bar and have dinner and have a dynamite meal at the bar, you could do it. But if you want to walk in and have a glass of whiskey, have a glass of wine with a client or with your significant other, have a great craft cocktail, Supper Club is a great place to do it. It's the best place for dinner, best place to celebrate anything. But you want a great pour of whiskey from their selection, it's an unmatched selection you'll find in town. It's at Supper Club. Get your reservation at supperclubbtr.com, supperclubbtr.com, or you can always just walk on in, y'all, because it's open seating at the bar from Tuesday to Saturday at Supper Club. Supperclubbtr.com, supperclubbtr.com. All right, y'all, it is after further review. We're glad you're hanging out with us here. Otter's still out in San Diego at Del Mar watching the ponies. Maybe he'll never come back. We'll see. I hope he does. I miss the Otter. John Bornay said, Matt, what's the status of Nick Anderson? Sounds like the wide receivers had a better day than the secondary. So Nick Anderson, Brian Kelly did discuss Nick Anderson. So we have it. Here you go. Can you play? This was Brian Kelly on the Oklahoma transfer, Nick Anderson.
Yeah, we kept him out of contact today. He had gone through our concussion protocol. He got into a little fender bender. And so we wanted to make sure. So he's cleared our concussion protocol. So today was his day of non-contact. He'll be able to get into 11-on-11, 7-on-7 tomorrow.
That's great news. So we should see, and it'll be interesting to see where he lines up and what part of the rotation. And Nick Anderson, we just didn't see him much in spring because he was still coming back from the quad injury that cost him his whole season last year at Oklahoma. But make no mistake, that dude averaged 21 yards a reception at OU 2 years ago. If he's on the field, he's a difference maker, and he stands out. So we'll look into it, see how it goes. And tomorrow when we're out there. Again, LSU does have media availability at practice on Thursday morning. They'll practice Friday, but no media availability. media gets the full practice on Saturday, and then they have a rest day on Sunday. So we'll keep you posted. Every time we have availability, we'll give you these full practice reports. All right, it's After Further Review, final break of the show. We'll come back. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll wrap up with what we learned and a little Ask Us. So you can text your questions if you got them in the 225-396-4400, 396-4400, 396-4400. It's AFR.
AFR.
Get Gordon and get it done. Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. Gordon, of course, partnered in Court to Table. Great new concept in Baton Rouge. And we will be doing AFR Thursday from Court to Table, celebrating the opening of the NFL preseason. Thursday is the Hall of Fame game, Chargers-Bears. If you need a place to watch, come discover your new favorite place to watch football or any sporting event in Baton Rouge. Court to Table. AFR from 3 to 6. And then afterwards, I'm going to stick around and we're going to watch the Hall of Fame game. So even if you come by just to have a beer, just to say hello, maybe to watch the whole game, maybe bring the family, maybe pick up dinner to bring it home, whatever it is, pop on in Thursday for AFR 3 to 6 or after in the Hall of Fame game and experience Court to Table for the first time if you haven't yet. We're looking forward to it. Gordon, of course, one of the partners there in Court to Table. And of course, if you've been injured in an accident, you know what to do. Go to getgordon.com. Get Gordon and get it done.
I'm Rodney Williams.
And I'm Travis Holloway. Welcome to the Wealth Break.
Let's be honest, building wealth doesn't look the same for everyone. It's not just about saving, it's about investing. It's about navigating systems that weren't built for you, embracing your hustle, and relying on your community to create something bigger.
And that's exactly why we created the Wealth Break. We made something different, something more human. It's not just another financial podcast. It's a conversation about real life, real struggles, and real wins.
We're here to talk about the journey. You'll hear from people who've broken barriers, found creative ways to succeed, and learned to build wealth on their terms. Whether it's the first-time homeowner, a gig worker, or someone turning a side hustle into a six-figure business, we're bringing you their stories.
And we're not stopping at success stories. We're breaking down the realities, like what it means to take risk, how to navigate failure, and why resilience matters. Because wealth isn't about money. It's about creating a life where you can thrive and help others to do the same.
So if you're ready for a podcast as much as about people as it is about money, you're in the right place.
Listen to the Wealth Break podcast on the iHeartRadio app.
You're great at protecting your own personal information. You probably even use things like two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN. But as much as you try to be in control of how your information is protected, there are lots of places that also have it, and they might not be as careful as you are. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second for identity threats. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock US-based restoration specialist will help solve identity theft issues on your behalf, guaranteed or your money back. Plus, all LifeLock plans are backed by the $1 Million Protection Package, meaning LifeLock will reimburse you up to the limits of your plan if you lose money due to identity theft. You might not be able to control how others handle your personal information, but you can help protect it with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Call 1-800-LifeLock and use promo code iHeart or go to lifelock.com/iHeart for 40% off. Terms apply.
Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. Consult a doctor prior to use.
You look great. What have you been doing?
I found Zelthy. If you qualify, their providers can prescribe the same active ingredients in Ozempic and other expensive GLP-1s for 80 to 90% less without insurance. All of mine shipped right to your door.
Get started with Zelthy today for just $39. Call pound 250 and say keyword CARE. That's CARE to pound 250.
After Further Review, presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. Visit yourgoodwood.com.
Down the stretch we come, final segment here on the Hump Day edition of AFR, presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. Lowest prices, never any contracts. You can always visit them online at yourgoodwood.com. yourgoodwood.com. We'll get to what we learned in just a bit. Missing Otter, man. Miss Otter locks. Miss losing on all his bets. Otter catching a stray. But he'll be back from Del Mar at some point, and we'll start doing Otter locks again. I'm really looking forward to football Sunday. Jimmy and his band of merry handicappers just throwing out winners left and right, paying people's mortgages and whatnot. All right, let's see. We get to questions. You can email us, tweet us, or text us, 225-396-4400, 396-4400, 396-4400. It's a question coming in. Clayton Knight said, so Brian Kelly said Nussmeier can run 21.4 miles per hour. That's like a high 4.5 40. What number was that? Do we have that one in his... is that the areas of growth for Nussmeier, number 12?
Yeah.
We talked a lot about all the things, though. I mean, you'd probably have to scroll to the end of that soundbite if you want to get that part of it. But
I can find it. Hold on.
He did talk about that. And I said, you want a bold prediction? Here's a bold prediction for you. I'll make a bold. We can go. I'll go on the record. Garrett Nuss. Let's see. In his career, okay, go ahead, hit it, please.
I think physically he's taking care of his body, so he understands that, he ran 21.4 miles per hour. I mean, that's high 4.5s. So I think he clearly understands that when the opportunity arises, that he can take off and be an effective runner.
In his career, Garrett Nussmeier has 41 carries for negative 96 yards.
I was going to ask whenever you gave the total if it was sack adjusted, but never mind.
Well, all rushing college is stupid, and so rushing totals are sack adjusted. But last year, Nuss had 34 carries for negative 38. I will make a prediction that Garrett Nussmeier will finish this season with more than 100 rushing yards. So it'll be a sack adjusted total. So his sack numbers will be in there, but he will finish with more than 100 rushing yards, sack adjusted, this season. We can go ahead and lock that in. It's just been too much of an emphasis. Like they showed us a play in spring with the media there where they ran. It was a zone read formation, but it was a design quarterback run. It was basically a naked boot, just without the passing attempt. And Garrett ran for 20 yards. And then in the spring scrimmage, they ran a quarterback draw in the red zone. And Garrett Nussmeier ran for a touchdown. He did score 3 rushing touchdowns a year ago. They've just made such a big deal out of it. Garrett's talked about it, and everybody knows it. He's got to be willing. Brian Kelly said, it might have been in that answer as well, the worst play has to be 0. Like the worst result has to be 0, meaning like there's just no gain on the play. An incomplete pass, you get back to the line of scrimmage, whatever. It just can't be the devastating play. And so much of that is Garrett learning, hey, when it's not there, tuck the ball and get 5 yards and move the sticks, or now it's 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 5 instead of 3rd and 10, or an interception or taking a sack, whatever. So I do think Garrett will, and Garrett's a good athlete, man. I do think he will run the ball more this year. I'm not saying like in 19 Burrow ran for like 400 yards that year. Hang on, I'll find it. Burrow in 2019 rushed for 527 yards. So he had no, I'm sorry. He ran for 368. He ran for 368. So in 2018 he ran for 399. In 2019 he ran for 368. I don't know that Nuss gets to that number. Joe ran 115 times. Now they also play 15 games. So maybe if you get to the point in the season where you're playing 15 or 16 games, that could happen. But I'm setting this on a sack adjusted number through 12 games. I do. I think we're going to see Nussmeier more closely resemble that this year than a guy that last year had 34 attempts for negative 38. And Heath Savoy said, are our receivers awesome, or is there still concern in the secondary? The answer to your question is yes. The receivers are awesome. And there is concern in the secondary. And look, I talked about it earlier. Athlon put out their list of the top 25 receiving groups in the country. Number 1 was Ohio State. Number 2 was Clemson. So you're going to be tested immediately week 1 on the road. You got better talent than you did a year ago. That's undeniable. But you still got to figure it out. Just got a month to do it. See if they can. Tigers are back on the practice field tomorrow. I'll be there. And, of course, I'll have a practice report for you on Locked on LSU, on LouisianaSports.net, and right here on AFR. Muse Pauly, thanks. We'll see you tomorrow at 3.
AFR.
As we get on down the road, remind you about our friends over at the Williamson Eye Center, 924-2020, 924-2020. If you want to see 2020, call 924-2020. Schedule that eye exam with Dr. Blake Williamson. I'm going to keep hammering this, y'all. Parents. It's back to school time. Make sure your kiddos get their annual eye exam. The Williamson Eye Center can make it happen. They got locations all over the Baton Rouge area. You have Baton Rouge, right there on Bluebonnet, Connells. They got Denham, Zachary, Lutcher, St. Francisville. So they got a Williamson Eye Center location near you, and they're a full-service optical shop. Yes, they do refractive procedures, LASIK, PRK, EVO ICL, custom lens replacement. I tell you all the time, you want to ditch the contacts and glasses forever, you can do it. But your kiddos are going back to school. Make sure they have their annual eye exam before school. Set it up today at the Williamson Eye Center, 924-2020, 924-2020, or williamsoneye.com.
I'm Rodney Williams.
And I'm Travis Holloway. Welcome to the Wealth Break.
Let's be honest, building wealth doesn't look the same for everyone. It's not just about saving, it's about investing. It's about navigating systems that weren't built for you, embracing your hustle, and relying on your community to create something bigger.
And that's exactly why we created the Wealth Break. We made something different, something more human. It's not just another financial podcast. It's a conversation about real life, real struggles, and real wins.
We're here to talk about the journey. You're hearing from people who've broken barriers, found creative ways to succeed, and learned to build wealth on their terms. Whether it's the first-time homeowner, a gig worker, or someone turning a side hustle into a six-figure business, we're bringing you their stories.
And we're not stopping at success stories. We're breaking down the realities, like what it means to take risk, how to navigate failure, and why resilience matters. Because wealth isn't about money. It's about creating a life where you can thrive and help others to do the same.
So if you're ready for a podcast as much as about people as it is about money, you're in the right place.
Listen to the Wealth Break podcast on the iHeartRadio app.
You're great at protecting your own personal information. You probably even use things like two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN. But as much as you try to be in control of how your information is protected, there are lots of places that also have it, and they might not be as careful as you are. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second for identity threats. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock US-based restoration specialist will help solve identity theft issues on your behalf, guaranteed or your money back. Plus, all LifeLock plans are backed by the $1 Million Protection Package, meaning LifeLock will reimburse you up to the limits of your plan if you lose money due to identity theft. You might not be able to control how others handle your personal information, but you can help protect it with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Call 1-800-LifeLock and use promo code iHeart or go to lifelock.com/iHeart for 40% off. Terms apply.
Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. Consult a doctor prior to use.
You look great. What have you been doing?
I found Zelthy. If you qualify, their providers can prescribe the same active ingredients in Ozempic and other expensive GLP-1s for 80 to 90% less without insurance. All of mine shipped right to your door.
Get started with Zelthy today for just $39. Call pound 250 and say keyword CARE. That's CARE to pound 250.
I'm Rodney Williams.
And I'm Travis Holloway. Welcome to the Wealth Break podcast, a real conversation about finance.
Let's be honest, building wealth doesn't look the same for everyone.
I feel like sometimes being broke is a cycle and that we might have to revisit that.
And we're not stopping at success stories.
What happens when it doesn't go right? How do you cope with it?
Because wealth isn't just about money. It's about creating a life where you thrive and help others do the same.
Listen to the Wealth Break podcast on the iHeartRadio app.
You're great at protecting your own personal information. You probably even use things like two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN. But as much as you try to be in control of how your information is protected, There are lots of places that also have it, and they might not be as careful as you are. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second for identity threats. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock US-based restoration specialist will help solve identity theft issues on your behalf, guaranteed or your money back. Plus, all LifeLock plans are backed by the $1 Million Protection Package, meaning LifeLock will reimburse you up to the limits of your plan if you lose money due to identity theft. You might not be able to control how others handle your personal information, but you can help protect it with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Call 1-800-LifeLock and use promo code IHEART or go to lifelock.com/iHeart for 40% off. Terms apply.
Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. Consult a doctor prior to use.
You look great. What have you been doing?
I found Zelthy. If you qualify, their providers can prescribe the same active ingredients in Ozempic and other expensive GLP-1s for 80 to 90% less without insurance. All of mine shipped right to your door.
Get started with Zelthy today for just $39. Call #250 and say keyword CARE. That's CARE to #250.